Happy birthday, young blood.
Thanks.
Happy birthday and happy Mother's Day,
Thank you.
young blood.
I'm not that much younger than you.
Yeah, but you're younger than me, so you're young blood.
Yeah, I'll take it.
The big 3-3.
Yep. I always have to ask you to remind me how old I am.
We actually hung out with people last night,
We did.
and she said, I'm 36. And she said, wait a minute. Am I 36?
Yeah,
I
and
said,
then she
no,
had to
actually,
ask
you're
her.
35.
Yeah, she had to check with her husband too.
Yeah. Not
do that all the time.
36.
Yeah.
A year later. But 35, 36, what's the difference?
Yeah, at this point, it all kind of blurs together.
All right, so welcome to While She's Napping. I am Adam.
And I'm Cindy.
And, we talked about having gender reveals and the, I wouldn't say the morality, but whether or not there's anything intrinsically maybe biased or, I don't want to say insensitive, but just ignorant maybe?
Maybe.
Regarding the aspect of gender reveals. That being said, we did one yesterday.
Right.
We participated in one yesterday.
We hosted one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were the subjects of that. Well, I guess you're the subject of the
Our
gender
child
reveal.
is the subject, I guess.
But
yeah.
You're carrying the child.
Sure.
I'm just
Yeah.
hanging out. And last week we gave our predictions as to what we thought the child was, the sex of the child, and we both said girl.
Yep.
We were both fairly certain that it was a girl, and
so was our daughter.
our current child, our daughter, also believed and was actually adamant that the baby is a girl. We were suspecting that the baby, since we found out you were pregnant, it was almost immediately after. I remember hearing myself say, I know in my soul.
Yeah.
It's a girl.
Yeah.
Turns out, it's a girl.
Yep. We don't have to change the name of the podcast.
Nope. That's important. That is very important. We don't have to change the name of the podcast. And, now that she's going to be napping and our oldest daughter probably won't be, if we could squeeze a recording session in, we could still call it While She's Napping.
Right. It'll be accurate because our older daughter.
One of them will be napping.
Yeah. Well, she's about to drop her nap, apparently. So
She's napping now. We're
Yes.
doing this midday.
Yes.
It's a very fragile ecosystem right now.
It is.
With this.
I'm preparing for the reality that she is no longer napping at all when the new baby comes.
Oh, probably not.
Yeah. She'll
Probably
be like
not.
over 3 by then. So
But hey, shout out to everybody that was excited and congratulated us on the Twitter sphere, on the Instagram. Shout out to the babes for sending us a text about it.
and also predicting it. That was great. The timing, because I sent Sarah and Chris a text saying it's and then I tried to send the video, and there was a lag in how long it took for the video to be delivered on their end.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, they sent me back a video that was like, what is it? We need to know.
Yeah.
Because I had just done it's a ... And then they both said it's a girl.
They did.
And then, oh wait, she just sent it.
Oh shit, she just sent it. Right.
So they hadn't seen the video yet, and they predicted it spot on, also with a lot of confidence.
Yeah, they nailed it. Let me see if I can pull in the audio. Maybe we can, and I'm sure they're not going to be upset if we play it. Let me see if it will run. Yep.
What is it? We want to know!
It's a girl.
It's a girl! Wait, oh, she just sent it. Okay, hold on.
Yep, there you go.
Yeah. When you first listen to it, it sounds like they already know.
Yeah. And turns out it's a girl.
Yep.
So
So we're very excited. We would have been excited either way.
yeah,
but
I look back on these things and I look back on that episode and I sort of talked up having a boy just because, mostly because of the relationship I have with my dad. But
Right.
that's not to say that I'm at all disappointed or
course not.
upset that
Yeah.
we're having. I'm thrilled that, because Kobe was Black Mamba and he was a girl dad. I could be White Mamba
Oh my God.
or Bearded Mamba
Okay.
and be girl dad.
Okay.
I just want to be a Mamba.
You just want to be on Kobe's level? I don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't know how to respond to that.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
yes and no.
Well, oh, you know what I mean. Oh my God, that was awful.
Yeah. Well, you walked right into it.
Oh my God, I wasn't even thinking that at all.
Okay. Well, anyways.
Oh my God, you should take that out.
No, it's staying. It's staying. Shout out to everybody that reached out to us. We appreciate it. We're very, very excited. And hopefully today's episode sort of emphasizes that or relays that, because we're going to be talking about feminism today. I think it's a good topic of discussion today, being Mother's Day, finding out that we're going to have
Another girl.
So I'm going to be raising 2 children, and the toilet seat's going to be nailed in down. I'll never be able to raise that up. And it's also your birthday, and this is something that you are a proponent of. And I do think, though, that there are some areas, just like any movement, just like any anything that's fighting for equality, there are pockets, small pockets of people that give it a bad name, right? That's with anything.
Yeah, with literally anything.
Anything, right?
Sure.
For a very loose example, and of course, this isn't a parallel to feminism, so don't, put that on the table. But like people that I love my country, there's nothing wrong with that. I love my country, and I fucking hate everybody that isn't American. Okay, that's a problem.
Right.
That kind of thing, right? There are always
right. It's
those
like that's
pockets.
like a twisted extremist version
Yes.
of patriotism.
Yes.
It's like it's twisting the whole concept of patriotism.
Right. You can love your country.
You can be patriotic without hating people who aren't from your country.
Exactly.
Yes.
You can appreciate where you're
I mean,
from.
that's truly patriotic.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And same thing with feminism. You can think or believe, which I do, that women should be treated and offered equal opportunities to that of men.
Or just that
your
women
gender doesn't
are
dictate.
Equal.
Yes, your gender. I'm saying in terms of opportunities. Your gender doesn't dictate whether or not you're qualified or able to do something in most things. But there are those individuals that are small pockets of the feminist movement that are just like women fuck men, or it's that sort of, I don't know, driven narrative. I couldn't be wrong about it. That's why I want to talk to you about it.
Right. So I guess I want to preface the whole conversation with, we did switch gears. We were going to talk about something else today. And so I think I'm just totally off the cuff here. I mean, obviously this is something that I've talked about before, something we've talked about, periodically. But I
For
didn't.
the record, all of our shit is off the cuff.
True, but I'm saying there are times where I have more time to sort of like think and outline my like things I want to address,
Right.
At least in my head, or do a little bit of research or cite some certain things that, emphasize or support my viewpoint. But I don't have any of that today.
But I feel like you're well versed in this as it is.
Maybe we'll find out.
Okay.
I think this is just something that is like many things. It's just a constant learning opportunity, and there are things that I know that I don't know.
Right.
And I haven't done an extensive amount of like outlining this in my head.
Okay.
That's all.
Well, let's start here. What is, because again, my picture or my influence as to what a feminist is has probably been sensationalized.
Yes.
It's probably been super hyperbolic from media sources or movies or whatnot. And this is no disrespect. I'm just saying the stereotypical quote unquote feminists in movies it's like mandatory that they have to be lesbian, mandatory that they have to have super short hair, and mandatory that they're super angry. That is the stereotype that has been put into like movies and any sort of media driven thing.
Maybe.
But I feel like I don't want to say smart enough, but I'm in the know enough to know that is not an accurate description of what a feminist is.
I hope so. I hope that you recognize that, because I think
But you agree that's sensationalized.
Of course.
Yeah.
But I also think there are lots of depictions of more realistic. I think there are more realistic depictions of feminists in the media as well, especially like I think this is very tied into the Me Too movement and the last several years. Whenever you and I have had this conversation, I feel like you've been hesitant to say flat out, I'm a feminist, because I feel like you were misdefining the word, or you were thinking that it meant that sensationalized extreme stereotype. So I'm curious where you fall on that now.
The term to me seems peculiar because, I mean, I feel that I've been clear, at least in the beginning of this episode and to you offline, that I believe in equality. And I feel that the term feminism just the term itself, doesn't lend credence to equality.
This is very, very all lives matter of you.
Okay, I'm just asking how.
No, I'm drawing the analogy. I'm not saying that you think you support the all lives matter movement or anything like that. I'm just saying, try to think of it that way. It's like the same reason why we say Black Lives Matter, and you don't have to say white lives matter or all lives matter, because they're not facing oppression. And it's the whole analogy of, if your neighbor's house is on fire and yours isn't, and the fire trucks show up to put out your neighbor's house fire, and you're there screaming, but you're not checking on my house, you're not attending to my house. Right. Well, no shit, because your house isn't on fire, but your neighbor's is. That's how it is that's how I always think of and explain why you need to say Black Lives Matter. And this is in the same way. The men haven't historically been oppressed or discriminated against because of their gender. So it makes sense to name feminism in the same way that we name Black Lives Matter.
I get that. And I understand the concept of, trying to battle or fight either verbally or, protests and whatnot for equality. For me, I struggle at this point in 2021. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. Obviously, there's a layer of, hardcore believers of men are more valuable than women. But I feel that, and this is based on nothing, just my opinion, I feel that's becoming less and less prevalent.
This is where I think you oversimplify it a little bit. Like, you're thinking about people who actively and consciously think men are, you just said, like, people who say men are better than women or men are more valued than women.
Okay, fine.
That's not the issue. I don't think there are a lot of people. It's similar. Again, I'm going to make another parallel to racism in our country. There are not a lot of people who are like members of the KKK or openly believe in white supremacy. I mean, there are groups.
I think there are now a lot of them.
I think they're just coming to the surface. But I think the more common form of racism is systemic or institutionalized racism, or racism that is so embedded in us that we don't even recognize. Like, we don't consciously, it's not like, you don't have to consciously think that Black people are less valued than white people in order to do or say racist things, because it's so ingrained in our society. We are built on white supremacy. So I feel like that is, again, a very parallel situation to gender inequality, that we are built on a society that favors men, and misogyny
I'm not
is
sure
in.
That's true though anymore.
It's definitely true.
I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I'm saying there are so many more women in actual powerful positions
Yes,
now.
I'm not saying it hasn't improved. I'm not saying it hasn't gotten better, but that's also a dangerous argument to say, well, just because, our vice president is a woman, that means we checked the box, we've overcome gender inequality.
No. That's not what I'm not saying we're good. I'm saying now I don't know. And again, this is literally me saying I don't know if this is as big of an issue as when the birth of feminism became a thing.
Of course.
Right now, the racial inequality that we're talking about compared to, the movements that we saw in the 60s, say, I believe that things really, I don't know, maybe a little bit have gotten better, but more or less it's still pretty bad.
I agree with you. I'm not trying to say the feminist movement and the Black Lives Movement are apples to apples.
Okay.
They're not. I'm just using the analogy for the general concept. But I'm saying I think you underestimate, even though there's been progress and even though there are many women in professions that historically have only been geared towards men, or there are many women in positions of power or leadership, that doesn't mean that there aren't many barriers to overcome for a woman to get to that place than there are for men, that men never think of. And it doesn't have to be a conscious thing. It's not like a company is going to be outright like, well, I'm going to pay you less because you're a woman. Like, that's not...
That's illegal.
Right. That's my point, is that, but it still happens and it still
what
perpetuates
do you mean that
itself.
still happens?
So the example that I always give is a woman's ability to advance in her career is constantly having to be balanced out by a woman's ability or expectations around caring for a family, because there is still, from my perspective, there is still the expectation for women to be the primary caretakers of their children and of their families and sort of manage their families. And
you just laid out three different things.
What do you mean?
You said primary caretakers.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, two different things. Primary caretakers and manage the family.
Yeah, I think those are two things.
But they're two different things, right?
They're
so
very
I can
similar.
see why when a child is born, the mother is the quote unquote primary caretaker, especially if you're breastfeeding.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Okay. All right.
But I'm saying it's like, I'm thinking back, like, think stereotypical 1950s, like super heteronormative family structure of a man and a woman. The woman is a stay-at-home mom and wife, and the man goes off to work and brings home the paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
And the woman cares for the family and the children. I feel like that expectation is not like people don't outright say it, but it's still there. Like, it defaults to the woman in most cases to be the primary caretaker of her family.
But again, I just laid out an example of why that would be an acceptable expectation, right?
Yes. But I'm saying there's not enough tools in place to allow a woman to do that without completely burning out and advance her career. So I'm saying the expectation of having to care for your family and be this like superwoman Pinterest mom.
I don't know what that means.
Like, to like be the mom who like throws your kids a perfect birthday party with this like adorable theme and like.
But that has nothing to do with work.
No, you're not. Listen, I know. I'm saying dads don't typically take that shit on. Dads aren't, keeping track of doctor's appointments and RSVPing to birthday parties and planning their own kids' parties and sending in crafts for Valentine's Day at daycare.
Like, that's just window dressing.
I agree with you, but I'm saying like any of those things, I'm saying you're right. Those are like the extra things that I feel like it's like a modern sort of expectation.
Yeah,
but on top of that, you say that, but like,
I don't give a fuck about sending Valentine's Day to daycare, and you shouldn't.
But when
either.
she comes home with 10 of them,
awesome.
And all the other kids are giving gifts.
I don't give a shit. She's 2. She doesn't care. There's no expectation there. The expectation is on the parents.
You don't feel it. You don't get it because the expectation is not on you.
I feel
no
like
one
that's
expects
a mom
you to
to
do
mom
that.
kind of thing.
Maybe, but it's not a competition either. That's not what I'm getting at. I'm saying, I don't know, maybe I'm not describing it clearly. I guess I'm just saying that like, but the things like doctor's appointments and keeping track of what size underwear she's in.
I can get there. With
that
you.
kind of stuff is not extra. Knowing how much medicine she needs,
I can get
knowing
there.
like the dosing for things that like that's the mental load that often falls to the mom.
And that coupled with your profession.
I'm saying when you're holding all of that to run your family and care for your children, and you're also trying to pursue a career, the men that are in your career, even though you are receiving the same paycheck and on the surface you have equal opportunity to advance in your profession, the men are not carrying that mental load on the side of also being the primary caretakers of their family and having obligations like if the mom is the one who always goes to the doctor's appointments or always brings the kids to their friends, whatever, like parties
to
or
me, that's
sports.
a familial thing, not a profession thing.
I agree with you. What I'm saying is that is still, to me, the default in our society, that there's a lot on moms to be that for their family. And that's the expectation. And when it comes to things like you were saying about new moms, and when they have a new baby, and especially if they're breastfeeding or something, like if I had my job isn't really like this, like there's not this sort of office culture, but I know in a lot of professions there is, where people go out for happy hour on a Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
Or you have to meet with a client for dinner or whatever.
Yeah.
That's a lot easier for a man who doesn't have a 6-month-old at home that is breastfeeding.
Of course, because the man can't breastfeed.
I agree with you. You're not following me here. I'm just saying these are just facts of life, things that women face, that women have to overcome to get to an equal place in their profession.
I guess what I'm struggling to find here is, where is it that there's this system? Where's the man in that holding it down? Like if you have to be, you being a woman, have to be the one to breastfeed instead of going out for a client dinner, how is that the man's fault?
I didn't say it's their fault. I'm simply saying you don't see the barriers. You don't see the
I get
challenges.
that it's a barrier, but I guess what I'm confused about is I was assuming that was a barrier built by the patriarchy.
Because the professional world doesn't allow for those things. The profession, like the woman who, put it this way.
I mean, you can't bring the child to the dinner and breastfeed. You just can't. You can't do that.
I get that. So what I'm saying is that woman's only choice is to miss that opportunity, and maybe a male colleague of hers is going to swoop in and go take that client out for dinner, and now that woman just lost a client.
I get it, but how is that a patriarchal system holding you down and not biology?
Because expectations like taking a client out for dinner when you're a working mom who has a young child at home, that shouldn't determine your success in your profession.
No, I get that.
So there should be...
If that client needs to be taken out for dinner and the only other option is, it's a man that's able to do it. You're
proving my point. You're saying, this is my point. There is not flexibility built into our professional world to allow for women to just be women and be moms.
So what would you recommend to do in that situation?
I'm saying the expectation that if you don't work after hours and go out to dinner with your client, that your professional life is gonna suffer because you have a family.
I don't think it should suffer. I'm asking.
But it inevitably does.
If that client, it needs to be taken out for dinner, if that's how you seal a deal, I'm just speaking loosely. What happens? What is the solution?
The culture of that corporate business, this professional world needs to change to accommodate. So take them out for lunch during the workday when the children are at daycare.
I got it. I'm with you there.
And our society needs to offer affordable childcare also.
Yes.
So those are the things that I'm saying, like, it is such a challenge for a woman to have to get just to be on an equal playing field with her male colleagues who don't have those responsibilities.
I get it. Okay.
And this is just a very specific example of women who have families and young children. There are many other things that...
Totally get it. I'm with you there. Okay. It just seemed that if this was the only available time for that client to be dinner, it's just, I'm sorry, that's the breaks.
I know.
That's not the man holding you down.
Correct. In that single example, this is exactly my point. You're looking at a tunnel vision at this one single instance. I'm saying think of it as a system and as how our society and our culture functions. That is like the business corporate
Got it. Okay. Yeah,
expectation. And if you can't do that, you're screwed.
I guess, and we've talked about this, when I talk about equality or when we bring it up together, I believe in equal opportunities. I think every person, regardless of anything, unless it's like something severe, like there are some exceptions I feel that disqualify you from a certain position, not based on gender, not based on
Correct.
race.
Like there are some professions just require you must be able to lift 50 pounds.
Yes.
And biologically, most men have more physical strength than women, so it might just end up
it's not
skewing towards
impossible
women.
that a woman
towards
could
men.
lift 50
Correct.
pounds, but it's unlikely the average woman could
Well,
be able to do that.
I wouldn't even say that. I would just say that job, that position would end up mostly being filled by men.
Yes.
Physical labor.
So that's what I'm saying.
Not that women can't do it, but it just ends up happening that way.
The opportunity should be extended to a woman. And if a woman's like, hey, I can't do that, it's not, well, fuck you, you're a woman. It's just, I'm sorry, this is the job I need to do.
Men who maybe can't meet those physical
Yes.
expectations, and they also wouldn't qualify for the job.
It's not because
I understand
you're
that.
a woman. Like
Yes.
I believe this. Any woman could, and I'm not saying, obviously people don't have the goal to do it. Some people, rather, don't have the goal to be able to do it, don't have the time to be able to do it.
Some people aren't able, don't have the physical
That's
ability.
what I'm saying. But I believe almost any woman, especially your age right now, could build themselves up by just physically.
That's not the point.
No.
I know where you're going with this. You're going to say, so men and women both have the equal opportunity to apply for a job. Some will qualify, some will not, in both genders. You're saying, but it shouldn't be an equal opportunity of outcomes.
It shouldn't be
You shouldn't have the expectation that you'll end up hiring 50-50 men and women.
Yes.
I agree with you. And this is where I get so frustrated when we have this conversation, is because people aren't arguing for that. And what I'm trying to explain to you is that what you call quote unquote equal opportunity is not that black and white, because I just gave you an example of someone in the corporate world who surface level has the equal opportunity to take her client out for dinner, but she doesn't in reality.
And I'm saying those things I feel need to be adjusted so it is an equal opportunity.
That's my whole point.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
There's a lot of variables and factors that go into creating true equality.
So this is why you mentioned it. I have an issue when it comes to equality of outcomes. So the whole 50-50 thing. I believe, I could be wrong about this, and I'm relying on my Canadian listeners of the show to holler back at me and let me know if this is true. But I've read somewhere that in the beginning of his, I don't want to say tenureship, but Trudeau in Canada, Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, he wanted his cabinet 50% women and 50% men. And I'm saying to myself, that is a terrible idea because you are hiring people based on their gender. But there could be, say, 75% of that whole, there could have been an additional 25% women that are better at a job than men in that cabinet, or vice versa. You should hire the best person for the job.
So here's
and not
where
strive for 50% women, 50% men.
That is such a dangerous slippery slope.
Why?
Because whenever that is said, like you're assuming that you're gonna, by trying to reach equality or trying to reach a 50-50 ratio, but in anything, this could also be in race if you were looking for 50 or equal representation of people of different religions, like whatever it is, maybe you're not, but I think sometimes the assumption is that if you create that expectation for that sort of an outcome, that you're automatically going to get less qualified people in those positions, rather than just assuming.
I think that's inevitable.
No,
At least one.
I think that's underestimating whatever the underrepresented group is that you're trying to bring more people to represent that group. You're automatically assuming that there's going to be less qualified individuals in that underrepresented group.
I think when it comes to a company or something, you might be right, but this is running a fucking country.
And so that's why I actually think it's more reasonable for a government to do this, because they're trying to create a government that truly represents the population that they serve. And if the Canadian population is generally 50-50 men and women.
I mean, I think that's any population, really.
True. Well, and there's also people who are gender non-conforming or non-binary, a small percentage. But I'm saying, generally speaking, if you want to create a government that represents the people that you serve, then it kind of makes sense, because the reality is there are qualified people in every group.
I'm not saying they're not, but I'm saying when it comes to running a country, your goal should be the best of the best.
Right. And I'm saying, what makes you think that having it be 50-50 would not result in having the best of the best?
I guess just based on pure numbers, it's almost impossible.
Yeah, and I
right?
think that's a really terrible assumption.
Right. I don't
There's
know.
no reason to think that there wouldn't be.
But if you try to migrate that to different things, say like a construction job, 50% women, 50% men, I don't know. Like
That's why I said I feel like the government example is an example where that makes a lot of sense, because the whole point is to represent the population. In a construction job, on a construction site, you're not trying to represent anybody. You're just trying to get the people who are most able to complete the job.
But if we're trying to implement this in every area.
We're not. Who is?
I don't know. That's what my confusion. Are women that are proponents of feminism trying to make it? Okay. So
I'm saying
it's
I don't.
an equality of opportunity there.
Yes, but it has to be true opportunity. Like the example I gave before, like technically that woman has the opportunity to take this client out at 7:00 for dinner. That means she has to give up. She has to pump an extra two times, or
I get
she has
that.
to
I'm already
give
with
up
you
some.
there.
I know. So I'm telling you, I think the things that you often cite as quote unquote equal opportunities don't get there. It's not enough. And that's why people end up focusing on outcomes.
In order to make that an equal opportunity, I think your example of instead of lunch, dinner, instead of dinner, lunch, because the opportunity is to take out the client. It shouldn't be the opportunity to take out your client to dinner. It should be the opportunity to take out the client.
To interact the client.
Yes.
Interact with the client. And yes. But I guess the other example is like women take longer. Well, because the way our family leave works in our country is just stupid because it's barely existent. But if a woman is on maternity leave, she should be given the same opportunities that any of the men or any of her colleagues were given during the time that she was on leave. She should not be penalized for being on leave. And that happens a lot.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And there's not any system in place to make up for that, for the reality of, so because I have a uterus and I'm the one who births our children, I don't get the same opportunity. Like,
full disclosure, I don't know how to fix that problem.
I don't have the answers either, but I'm saying these are the types of things that feminists are worried about. People fighting for gender equality are trying to get our society to a place where women aren't penalized for being women. And they're not worried about like, we want 50% of the construction workers to be women. Nobody gives a shit about stuff like that. Like I feel like that's an understandable, like it's a natural situation that happens.
So when
more construction workers are men.
I deliberately took construction working into the equation because it is, I feel like geared towards men, because we just talked about like, by and large, and this is not an insult. It's just biologically, the way our bodies are constructed are obviously different, and men tend to be able to lift heavier things. I'm not saying women can't.
I know. I know what you're saying.
I'm just trying. I'm walking on eggshells here, you know. At the same time, and maybe this is like a sociological thing that has been embedded into my brain as a result of what we're talking about, but when you look at the extreme flip side, right? So the extreme one end is construction working, we'll say, and that is geared towards men. When you look at the flip side of something that's geared towards women, I would put an example of like daycare centers, and I would be extremely uncomfortable if there were 50% men like being daycare people. I'd be very uncomfortable sending my child there.
Why do you think that is?
Because more men are pedophiles than women.
Okay, that's
true.
That's
not
just
the
reason.
Truth.
But that's not the reason.
But I'm telling you why I would be uncomfortable.
I understand, but I'm saying I really think that it's much bigger than that. It's this whole, again, women are the maternal caretakers, and I'm not saying there's not truth to that. I'm not saying that a lot of women aren't more nurturing, like that's like your natural instinct, especially if you're a mother. But I think it's so foreign, the concept of having men be caretakers in that same way.
Without an ulterior motive. That's what I would be.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like that's so ingrained in your head that you can't.
I just said that.
I'm not blaming you for that. But I'm pointing out to you, like, it just goes back to the stereotypical, like, women are the nurturers, the caretakers, and men are out doing the hard physical labor on the construction site and bringing home the paycheck.
Right.
It all feeds into the misogynistic, stereotypical, like,
but that's,
dynamic that our society is built on.
My perception of that isn't, no, I want a woman to do it because she's better suited. It's more, I don't want a man to do that because, to me, there's something fucking up with that man if he wants to.
I think that's crazy.
I'm sorry. Like, it's the truth that more men are pedophiles than women. That is a fact.
That doesn't mean that any man that works with children is a pedophile.
I didn't say that. I'm saying I would question the motives.
Why?
Because it's just it's so foreign.
Okay, so most mass shooters are white men. Do you think everybody who comes into contact with you is like, oh, there's a good chance, or there's a better chance that he's gonna commit a mass shooting?
I guess it's. When you look at the flip side in the construction working, if I saw a woman construction worker, to me, I'm talking personally, that wouldn't rub me the wrong way.
Of course not.
Right. I'd be like, yeah, okay, so what? But if I saw a man working at a daycare center, I'd be like, what the fuck?
So listeners, go back in our archive to the toxic masculinity episode.
How is it toxic? It's not toxic.
Because a woman doing a quote unquote man's job is like...
I would question the motives.
I know. I'm going back to...
I don't think that's unnatural. I think it's acceptable. You disagree?
I think that it goes back to the point I made in the toxic masculinity episode, or maybe it was the gender roles episode, about when a woman is like a tomboy or does a quote unquote manly thing or a manly job, it's like good for her. Like she's doing something good. When a man does something feminine or does a woman's job, he's viewed as less of a man or feminine in a negative connotation.
I wouldn't put the feminist label on him. I wouldn't say feminine.
Okay. Okay. When you know exactly what I'm saying.
Because I would be... There are things that you're talking about if like men knitted or something. I can see why I don't agree with this, but I can see what you're saying. Men would look at that man and say, "What? That's gay. That's dumb. What are you, a woman?"
My whole point is that it feeds into the man equals good, woman equals bad. That women striving to be more like men, hey, good for you. Men striving to be more like women, what are you doing? That's so gay.
No, but that's the thing. I wouldn't look at that and say that's so gay.
Okay,
I would
my
say,
point is you question
I'm concerned.
it. I know, but my whole point is that you question it. You don't question a woman doing a man's job because that's the cream of the crop. Like whatever men do is like considered an admirable thing.
No, I wouldn't.
I'm not saying you think this. I'm saying to me, as I perceive it, this is the underlying foundation of the culture that we live in.
Okay, maybe.
And I feel like that affects our psychology in a way that you're describing, where you get triggered of like a man doing a childcare job is so foreign and so odd and so weird to you that you go to this place of like, he must be a pedophile. Why else would a man do this woman's job?
I'm not saying he couldn't do it. It would weird me out.
The fact that you question it so easily and so intensely speaks to the whole point that I'm making.
You wouldn't?
No.
Oh,
well,
I
no.
don't
Okay.
know.
That would be a lie, because I'm also brought up in this culture and I also have been ingrained with these same thoughts. So it's uncommon, and I might think it's unique or interesting. I'm not saying I wouldn't bat an eye. I wouldn't go so far as to be worried that he's a pedophile.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
That thought never crossed my mind until you said that.
Okay. I watch a lot of To Catch a Predator.
Yeah, you watch too much of it.
And I could just see Chris Hansen walking into that daycare. Why don't you have a seat?
There's extensive background checks and...
Why don't you have a seat over here?
Yeah, no. I would not be worried about that.
All right, we went long. Let's take a break right here. And why don't you have a seat? We'll be right back. So what I want to do is we talked about the sort of the bruises or the bad apples in the movement. Why is it when we talked about like those hyperbolic and stereotypical forms of portrayal of a feminist, like how large do you think those pockets of people are? Or do you think those are just the vocal minorities? Sort of like what we talked about, like the patriotism kind of thing.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think it is. I think, there was even an episode, what's the show called? United, God, what is it?
I don't know what you're talking about. It doesn't matter.
Think of it. Anyway, there's a show that goes. It's Kamal Bell is the host, and he goes to different segments of the population, and he's basically like trying to learn from extremist groups, extremists in all different segments of our culture, and he did an episode on extreme feminism. And when we watched, I'm pretty sure you watched this with me, or you caught a piece of it, and you were like, yeah, see? And I'm like, this is in a show where there's also an episode about members of the KKK. I'm not comparing feminists to the KKK. I'm simply saying that show is highlighting the most extreme ends of the spectrum on any given movement. And that just I'm just illustrating that that's not a typical feminist. That's a very extreme version.
I guess that's where it gets dangerous for me and I guess this is just like anything else. I don't want to just pick on feminism. It's pretty much with anything, any sort of movement, that when you have these very loud vocal minority groups, and I'm not saying minorities in terms of a sociological minority, I'm saying the vocal minority in terms of the quantity of the amount of people representing the group, it gets dangerous, just like anything else. Like we've talked about the fat acceptance community, we've talked about the I don't know, Proud Boys when it comes to having that dangerous level of patriotism and stuff. That to me is sort of, it's not parallel, but that sort of gets the message mixed, right? Especially with the fat acceptance community. And I don't want to just pick on them. I don't want to pick on them because I know it's a bad, a soft subject here. But when you have that level of, all right, so having the aspect, and I don't know if this is an ingredient when it comes into feminism, but like, don't judge me based on my body. I'm not an object. And I'm with you there. Women shouldn't be objectified. But when you crank it and say, don't judge my health based on my obesity, I can say, no, I'm not judging your health. It's just, this is science,
Okay. Yeah. One thing quick I want to point
Sure.
out before we move on from that point with talking about extremists in the white supremacy realm. First of all, it's called United Shades of America.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think there is a difference, even though I was saying, he does an episode on feminist movement and he does episodes that have to do with groups like the KKK. The basis of the beliefs of the KKK are nowhere like even on the same playing field as the basis of the beliefs of feminism, because I was going back to before.
Parallels.
No, I just want to be extremely clear on
Yes,
that
yes.
The feminist movement comes out of legitimate oppression of women throughout our history.
Sure.
The KKK there's no oppression. White people have never been I'm just saying it's not even rooted in a legitimate
I'm not
thing.
trying to draw a parallel.
I know you weren't. I feel like I was.
Oh,
I wanted to clarify. So I guess
Talking
you're
about the
getting at
extremist movements.
you're getting at to the empowerment piece of it. Is that where you're going with this?
Yes and no, because I do believe that women right now should be having a sense of empowerment. I think that's important, and I think that's important for any sort of movement. Like with the Black Lives Matter movement, I do believe it's important for people of color to feel empowered in order to mobilize and to continue this movement. I feel like that's a very necessary ingredient for it to happen. What I don't like is that one that's cranked to 22 and it's, hey, like for instance, you don't like Ghostbusters with all the females? You must not like female actors. No, it was just a bad movie. It has nothing to do with, who's starring in it. It's just a bad movie.
And what I'm saying is that people who believe in the true message of feminism, at least as I understand it, are not concerned about things like that. Like, I think the main thing about that is that it's similar to when we're talking about race. Representation does matter in the media. Like, you want little girls to see examples of women doing all the things that women are perfectly capable of doing, and not only see men in certain roles, or not only see men as superheroes or the protagonists or whatever. That being said, I don't think there's an expectation that every movie that ever comes out that has a female lead or a strong female character, we automatically have to say, oh, it's good, it's a great movie. Like, no. Like, that doesn't make you not a feminist.
I get it. I guess if we're going to stick to those portrayals, right, I do believe it's important. And we've talked about this when it comes to our daughter and I guess now our children. For me, it's assuming they're interested in sports, assuming they're interested in athletics. This is just, and I kind of think they will be. Our child right now is interested in those things. It's important for me to be able to watch WNBA games with my daughter. It's very important for me to do that so she can see, look, there are not just men playing this game. You can do it too. Mm-hmm. It's important for me to do that. But at the same time, I could say there are certain things that an NBA player can do that a WNBA player can't. They're just, there's no slam dunk competition in a WNBA.
You don't need to say that to your daughter.
No, I'm saying this to you. I'm not saying this. I'm just saying those differences are there. And I'm not saying that makes one better than the other. However, if an individual that happens to be a male enjoys slam dunks and says, I just like watching the NBA more than the WNBA, that does not make him an anti-feminist.
I don't disagree with that.
I'm saying there are pockets of the movement that say you should like both. Like, there are pockets of the movement that say WNBA players get paid X amount, NBA player gets paid triple that. That's not fair. That's not a man versus woman problem. That's the ownership of the team problem. The owners that don't get the revenue coming in because people aren't watching the WNBA as much as the NBA. That's not because you're a woman problem. That's because there's not enough eyes on the product. People find the NBA more entertaining than the WNBA.
Do you think that has anything to do with everything that I talked about earlier about the fact that men are just more valued?
No,
in
I
our
just
society?
think it's a completely different viewing experience.
Okay.
You disagree with that?
I mean, I don't really watch enough NBA or WNBA
I'm
to
not saying
say.
the WNBA players aren't talented.
But
they
okay,
are.
so that's what I'm saying is so we're basing people's worth on the
I'm
revenue.
not basing their worth.
I'm saying in terms of what they earn monetarily.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying the issue with that, I think there's two layers to it. I understand what you're saying about the logistics of if any given company is bringing in more revenue, they're going to have more money available to pay their employees.
Yeah, these entities are reliant on sponsorships.
Sure. So I'm saying on the one level that I'm so put a pin in that for a second. Sure. Now we're talking about two athletes. One's male, one's female. Mm-hmm. One plays in the WNBA, one plays in the NBA, or gets recruited to play in college or whatever. They have the same level of talent. They've put in the same amount of work. They've done all of the same things to get them to this professional level. And then one ends up getting paid a third of the other. And it's not just a one-off situation. It's a regular pattern of men versus women. And this difference that, to me, speaks of a bigger issue culturally, societally, than I just feel like that's an excuse. They bring in more revenue.
No. I'm saying, what if people find the basketball in the NBA more entertaining than the WNBA?
Is it more entertaining or is it just more mainstream?
I don't know. I'm just saying, let's assume for a second that people find it more entertaining because of the things that the men basketball players are able to do that the WNBA players can't. Like, this is not a criticism of their abilities. It's just a noticeable difference of what they're able to do.
I don't really know. I mean, I don't think I'm well versed enough in business in general to really understand like how it all works in terms of sponsorship and revenue and how many people watch and things like that. I get where you're coming from with that. I just feel like there's a deeper seated effect.
Like, all right, so to me, the differences between the WNBA and the NBA in terms of their physical limitations or lack thereof are pretty noticeable. But MLB and softball, I don't really see much of a difference. I really don't in terms of the ability.
Right, but
yes, like it's sort of shortened the field and stuff, and it's a smaller field.
But it's not meaningful in the way that the game is played. It's still equal
played
entertainment.
Exactly the same.
Right. So, but why is the MLB's? There's not even
there. It's like, just no. There's not like a major league softball,
right.
as far as I know.
Me either. I don't know of one either. So I'm saying, why is that? Why are men's sports so favored in our society?
I don't know. And I
know.
do see, no, because there are some things like, again, I don't know the sport that well, but
figure skating.
No. Women's tennis is, I think, more entertaining than men's tennis. I think the Williams sisters are incredible, and they could probably smoke the best tennis player in the world.
Maybe. I know literally nothing about tennis, but I've seen plenty, like when I have watched tennis matches, I see men and women pretty equally. Like, that's not considered a woman's sport.
No. You're right. I'm just saying, to me, that's an example of a woman that's probably, like, I believe her name is Serena Williams, is the best tennis player in the world.
Right?
I don't know if she still plays, but
okay.
She's the best tennis player in the world. Period. Probably better than any man out ever.
Okay.
No, I'm just saying, like, and I guess that's
Venus. That's the sister's name.
Yeah, I think the sport itself has, the opportunity for a woman to play. It's not apples to apples to the MLB because there's no, segment of the MLB where
my
women
point
play.
is that there's a whole historical context as to why there aren't more women in sports in general. Like, men are the athletes. Stereotypically, historically, men are the athletes. And even more historically, when we think about baseball, white men. Like, there's a whole history of discrimination in sports.
I would like to see that changed in baseball. I think women can play baseball just as well as men.
Yeah, I agree.
But and that's the thing. I think women can, because we're talking about basics here. It's not like, I don't know biologically if there has ever been some sort of metric used to see. I'm sure it's out there. I don't even really want to pay attention to it, but it wouldn't surprise me at all. It feels weird to even say, like, women can run fast. And if
obviously,
I'm saying if you need a stolen base, like women can obviously hit a baseball. Like this, there's nothing in their biology that prevents them from doing this. It's not an unattainable feat.
And I bet there are a lot of women who would be really great coaches who are, because baseball is such a what's what I'm looking for? Like, high intelligence game in terms of like the strategy and the like.
I'm sure women can pitch.
It's very meticulous.
Yes, women can catch a baseball. Like, this is so obvious for me to say. But when we go to the NBA, because women aren't necessarily growing up to be 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", it's difficult for them to.
Most men aren't either.
No, but most most NBA players are.
Of course, but I'm saying so. Just tall people. Why does it matter if you're a tall man or a tall woman?
Because most women, there's a clear height advantage when it comes to NBA. Like, the taller you are, the better you are.
Same for WNBA. No, obviously, taller women are taller people are better at basketball.
I don't think that's
than short
true.
people.
I think
what
again.
That's why basketball players are tall. I know there are some exceptions.
Yeah. In terms of the position you play,
right? But generally speaking, basketball players, are tall for a reason.
I guess. I'm put it this way: when it comes to playing in the NBA, I think having that height advantage when it comes to rebounding, when it comes to having the physical strength to box someone else.
Yeah.
I don't know that a woman can come in to like enmesh the genders and do it as well. Whereas in the
If she's just as tall as the men.
But I feel like on average, there would be a strength advantage by the men in terms of out rebounding and stuff.
I don't think so.
I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying on average.
If she's an athlete to the point where she'd be playing in the WNBA, fuck that. No. She's an athlete. A woman...
I'm willing to bet the best WNBA team would get smoked by the worst NBA team.
Maybe. You know more about the game than I do. I'm just saying women who are athletes, I just have such a high respect for athletes no matter what your gender is.
I get it.
And
I'm not
you
taking
can
away from their abilities. I'm just saying there's differences in how those two leagues are played.
Sure, but I feel like for a woman, if a WNBA player was going toe-to-toe with an NBA player, she probably has certain strengths that he doesn't have and vice versa. Like whatever she lacks in strength, if this NBA player is in fact physically stronger than her, she maybe is better at other parts of the game. Maybe she's faster. Maybe she's a better ball handler.
But I'm saying those differences would be a little bit more noticeable. And I'm willing to bet if you take the best female softball team against the worst MLB team, I'm not as
They would
confident.
Fuck them up.
Yeah, I'm sure. But that wouldn't shock me.
I see what you're saying. I think because basketball's a more physical game.
Yes.
I can understand what you're saying, but I still think that
the basics of baseball and softball are so similar that
yes, I understand what you're saying. I get that. Basketball is a contact sport. Like it's very, very physical. I'm saying I think for any given man, like a male basketball player against another male basketball player, they're going to be good at different aspects of the game.
Yes.
I'm saying it's going to be the same thing if you put a man versus a woman and they're both professional athletes, professional basketball players. The woman may be less strong or be weaker in some sense than the male,
ball handle,
but she might have other right. So like I'm saying, ultimately, I think it would kind of all even out.
I'm not confident when it comes to basketball that it would.
This is a very specific conversation.
Yes. But my point is that like acknowledging these differences doesn't mean I overall favor one gender over the other. I'm just acknowledging the differences. Like we can take it a step further. Pool players, billiard players the best billiard players are usually women because of their body structures, because of the shoulders aren't as broad, and that gives them an advantage, like geometrically.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
To hit a ball and to maneuver their bodies more than men.
Sure.
And that is a biological advantage that a woman has over men. And if you take the best women's pool player against the best men's pool player, it would probably not be even. The woman would probably win more often than not.
Maybe.
And I'm saying acknowledging these biological differences,
I'm not saying that it's wrong to acknowledge. I'm not saying there's not truth in it in some circumstances. I'm saying in the big picture, in the grand scheme of things, for me, when I say I'm a feminist, I'm not worried about if a woman pool player would beat a man.
No.
Like I know. I'm not trying to diminish what your examples, but I'm saying these sorts of very specific hypotheticals, like that's not what I'm concerned about.
No. I'm not trying to focus just on the victory here. I'm just saying acknowledging biological differences. I'm using sport
I understand that,
as
but
a
I'm saying
vehicle.
yes, but that's also a very minute portion of the population who are professional athletes.
Of course, yes.
I'm not saying it doesn't matter. I'm not saying equality in those spaces don't matter, but I'm saying in the big picture, for someone like me who's like an average person who would describe myself as a feminist, I'm worried about our cultural expectations for women and how it does not align with the cultural expectations that we have in different segments of people's lives do not align for women.
Sociologically, I do think it should be equal. I feel that we're getting there. I mean, you would know
in certain ways.
Like, and this doesn't mean problem solved. I do think it's not, radical for me to say that today is the best time out of any time in history for women. And that's not to say problem solved. Mm-hmm. I'm saying I feel that it's a sign that things are improving, maybe not fast enough, but it is a sign that there is improvement on
Yes.
the horizon.
I will say it's something that we should have probably mentioned at the beginning of the episode, but it's something I think this is not something I'm well versed in, but I recognize that it's an important thing to talk about whenever you're talking about feminism, is that I think the whole intersectionality of it is pretty new for a lot of people, thinking about Black women specifically, race and gender put together.
Yeah.
Is not something that has been given enough emphasis. And I know that there's a lot of criticism towards like the white feminist movement. And historically, it has actually been damaging to Black women or women of color.
Yeah.
I don't have the answers to any of this. I am not, like I said, not well versed in it.
Just a bunch of Karens,
but
Karening out.
Yeah, but I mean, like on a very basic level, you think about like when women got the right to vote. We celebrate that every year. We just had the 100th anniversary of the women's suffrage movement and all that. It was all white women.
Yeah.
Black women still didn't have the right to vote.
Karens in jest.
I know. I'm just saying that example, the whole, like you say, yes, we have made progress. I guess I'm just saying there's been more progress for white women, and we need to really dive into it as an intersectional problem.
Yeah, I'm not disregarding that. I guess soup to nuts, what I wanted to talk about here, and we can wrap it up. I guess what I struggle with are those hyperbolic and radical and sort of, untrue or whatever misrepresentations of the feminist movement. I don't like extremism in anything.
I get it. And you're thinking of like the women who run through the street naked with writing all over their bodies, like.
And for me, I don't even make a judgment on that. Like,
right.
To me,
and so that's where I get like, I don't want to judge. Well, especially for people who are in a situation where I've never been in. If it's someone who's faced, like in the Black Lives Matter situation, I am not going to judge a person of color or a Black person as to how they respond to anything having to do with racial discrimination, because that is not my place. Like, and everybody responds to trauma differently. And I am not going to judge that. So that's why I get a little bit annoyed when I feel like if you make judgments of, if there are women in that part of the feminist movement who feel like that's the way to respond and that is the way to affect change, is to run through the street topless. I agree with you that I feel like that's not, like, in my personal opinion, I don't think that's the best way to affect change.
Yeah, speaking
but
as someone...
do think there are other people, if they think that is their role and that is what they need to do to move things forward, I'm hesitant to judge that.
Speaking as someone that is, not in the know with this, like, as someone that's maybe that those types of individuals are trying to reach, I'm responding, I don't get it.
Right.
But
maybe you're not the audience. Like, I don't know.
I might not
depends.
be. It's not about me.
Right.
But if you're trying to reach someone that already doesn't get it, i.e. me, and try to, like, I don't know, for lack of a better way to put it, wake me up, quote unquote, I'm saying I don't get it.
I know.
And that's not to say don't do it. I'm just saying
it doesn't speak to you.
It's not getting the message being received, but I'm not going to tell you don't fucking do it because I don't get it. Right. It's just, if you feel the need to do it, do it. I'm saying when it comes to this movement, having been so jaded by those stereotypical, over-exaggerated representations of the movement, I'm hard pressed to, like, sort of take a deeper dive into this. But
I think that's the exact answer.
If it's because soup to nuts, we're just fighting for equality. We're trying to have, like, equal opportunities, as you mentioned, with those, like, in work environments and work opportunities, and not be held down because of our uterus or whatever. Yeah, then I guess I'm a feminist.
And we didn't even talk about over-sexualization of women, like in advertisement. And
that
could be another episode. We can talk about, like, Instagram beauty standards and shit like that. Yeah. But that's a whole nother layer.
But having now 2 daughters, it's very important for me to emphasize to them you can do anything.
Right. And they can. And we need to remove the barriers that exist in our society so that they can fulfill their potential.
Yeah.
That's what feminism is.
Yes.
To me.
Fine.
All right, I'm getting you a shirt for Father's Day.
Well, no, just give me a girl dad shirt.
All right, maybe I'll get you a feminist one next
shirts.
year.
I don't want to wear movement shirts. I don't do that.
But so, to me, it's like so non-controversial. Most people are feminists.
I don't like movement
It's not
shirts.
a bad word. Feminism is a good ism.
Sure. I don't like movements.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm part of the
Well,
movement.
you need to. I think we should. I think this
I'm
was
part
a
of
good,
the podcast movement.
This was a good conversation. I think that what you said about like your knee-jerk reaction to the extremist stereotype that you've been exposed to, I understand it. And now you have the opportunity to dive deeper into what real feminism is and decide if you support that version of it, which is the reality.
Yeah, if it's just equality, of course.
Of course.
I support equality in all.
That's what I
fronts.
mean. It seems pretty straightforward to me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, having said that, happy birthday.
Thanks.
I hope this was a good birthday conversation. If you have any feelings when it comes to the feminist movement, or maybe I said something that, maybe missed the mark, I'm sure there is. Don't attack me. Just, I'm trying to learn here. That's all.
We both are.
Yeah. And we're not experts at anything. I mean, you are at some things.
No,
I'm an expert of none.
Not about this, other than just being a woman.
Sure. I mean, that makes you a 1% expert. Kind of
It makes
like
me more of
how
an expert than you.
I'm a 1% psychologist because I
Right.
took intro to psychology.
Mm-hmm.
So. Got a leg up. If you want to get in touch with us and you want to discuss maybe today's topic or previous topics with us, please do reach out to us on social media. Having said that, before we get into plugging that, happy Mother's Day to all the moms. By the time this is released, it's going to be Monday. So yesterday, happy Mother's Day. Hopefully your Mother's Day was fantastic. I know here in Rhode Island it's a beautiful day, so if you have great weather where you are, hopefully you were able to enjoy it and chill out, and hopefully you were just doing nothing and kicking your feet up like you deserve to. So happy Mother's Day. Having said that, if you want to get in touch with us, you can.
We're on Facebook at facebook.com/whileshe'snapping, on Instagram at whileshe'snapping, on Twitter at She's Napping Pod, or you can always email us at whileshe'snapping@gmail.com.
I don't know what we're going to talk about next week. Sort of playing it by the cuff, like you said, off the cuff rather. So we'll figure it out.
We have a lot of ideas. We just can't decide week to week.
We still
the
got
timing.
the best cereals episode.
Oh God, it's so boring.
We'll see. All right. Take care.